Hello everyone, welcome back to Animals with Nianne. Today we're talking about a very iconic animal, the ring-tailed lemur. Their scientific name is Lemur cotta. Cotta actually comes from the Latin word cottus, which means cat. And honestly, they kind of look like one.
Do I look like a real boy, Papa?
And funnily enough, in German they're also called Katta, which also comes from the word cat. So the cat comparison really stuck internationally. But even though they kind of remind me of a cat, they're actually one of our more distant primate relatives. And I've been lucky enough to work with lemurs in a zoo, and I can tell you they're so entertaining to observe. There's always something going on, whether it's little conflicts, grooming sessions, or just them sitting in the sun like royalty. And I hope at the end of this video you will be a big fan of them just like I am. Let's get started! So let's start what they actually are. Ring-tailed lemurs belong to a group that's called, let me see, I have to pronounce this correctly, strepsirrhines, which are considered more of the primitive primates. They split up earlier in evolution than apes and monkeys. While monkeys and apes mainly evolved in Africa and in Asia. Whilst editing the video, I feel like I did not explain myself very well, so I'm going to attempt another time, and hopefully I can explain it a little bit better this time. But the thing is that monkeys and apes evolved in a pretty special way, mainly because of the continental shifts that forced monkeys to evolve differently in isolation in South America and differently in Africa and in Asia. And in Africa and Asia, that's where the monkeys evolved to like apes, such as like gorillas, chimpanzees, and so on. And Madagascar also shifted away from Africa and became an isolated island, which had like a huge effect on how species evolved there and how the biodiversity looks like on Madagascar. And yeah, because of that shift away from Africa, lemurs evolved very differently than monkeys and apes that we know from different parts of the world. So yeah, even though they're related to monkeys and apes, they're very different. I hope this is a better explanation. Lemurs evolved in isolation on Madagascar, and that isolation is key. Because there are no monkeys competing with them, lemurs basically evolved to fill all kind of ecological roles. Some are tiny, some are large, some are nocturnal, but the ring-tailed lemur is one of the most well-known lemurs. They have that iconic black and white striped tail, a fox-like face, and a relatively slender body. The tail isn't used for grabbing branches or other things like monkeys do, it's more for balance and communication. And something really interesting about lemurs is that they have a tooth comb, which is in their lower jaw, and they use it for grooming. But even crazier is that they have a second tongue. They have that second tongue just to clean that tooth comb. So I guess you can say grooming is really important for them to develop a second tongue and a specialized tooth comb. Another important thing about ring-tailed lemurs is that they have scent glands. They are located on their wrists, in their armpits, and next to their anus. These scent glands are important for communication, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Ring-tailed lemurs live in the south of Madagascar, which is actually one of the harsher environments on that island. They're found in dry forests, shrublands and rocky areas, so not in a lush jungle as you might imagine. This environment in the south can be hot, unpredictable, which is why the ring-tailed lemurs are incredibly adapted. They also spend a fair amount of time on the ground compared to other primates. Most primates stay in trees, but I feel like the ring-tailed lemurs don't really give a I guess, and are often just walking around. Ring-tailed lemurs live in groups, which are also called troops. These groups can have from 10 individuals to 25 individuals. And if you've ever seen the movie Madagascar, which I feel like a lot of Gen Zers, including me, have seen this movie and know about this movie, but you might remember King Julien. Actually should be Queen Juliana. There's usually one dominant female in the group. Males are usually a bit of the outsider in the group. So basically, ring-tailed lemurs they live in a matriarchy. Ring-tailed lemurs communicate in several ways. Like I've mentioned before, they have scent glands, which they use to communicate as well. And they also use their body language and vocalizations. And one of the most iconic behavior is the sting fights. Males will use their tails to rub on their scent glands and spread their scents throughout their territory. And whoever is the smelliest ring-tailed lemur is basically the coolest ring-tailed lemur. They also use their smell to defend their territory, and you often see them sitting in the sun with their arms wide open, also known as the sun greeting. But the actual reason why they do this is to warm up their scent glands. Another interesting thing about the ring-tailed lemurs is that unlike many other lemurs, they're not nocturnal. They're active during the day. On Madagascar, they don't have the same level of predators as in other places, so being active during the day is not as risky as it would be in those places where there are predators. When it comes to reproduction, ring-tailed lemurs are quite seasonal. Females are only fertile for a very short time in the year, which makes timing extremely important. Males can usually detect when a female is ready to mate through their smell. And after a gestation period from around 4.5 months, the female usually gives birth to one baby, but twins are also quite common. At first, the baby clings to the mother's belly, and after a while it will move to her back. And something that I personally find really special is how social the group is. Other members often help with grooming and also keep an eye out for the young. Ring-tailed lemurs are mostly herbivorous, so that means they will mainly eat plants. They will eat leaves, they will eat flower, fruits, but not the sugary fruits that we eat in the Western world. Those would be actually too high in sugars for them, and they will get sick if they get that much sugar inside. They're adapted to foods with a lot more fiber and far less sugar. That said, they're also opportunistic feeders, so sometimes they'll also eat small rodents and bird eggs, and also at the zoo I've seen them eat, how do you call it again? Dragonflies as well, if they can catch one from the air. So they're not strictly vegetarian, they'll just kind of eat whatever they can, but they do mostly prefer plants. Unfortunately, like many species on Madagascar, ring-tailed lemurs are under a serious threat. According to IUCN, they're endangered, which was last assessed on May 2018. Their natural predator is the fossa, which is actually Madagascar's largest carnivore, but the biggest threat comes from humans. Large parts of Madagascar's forests are being cleared for agriculture and livestock farming, and trees are also cut down for charcoal and firewood. On top of that, climate change is also unfortunately increasing droughts and extreme weather, which makes fires more common and restores even more of the habitat. Some ring-tailed lemurs are also hunted, and sadly enough they're also sometimes taken from the wild for illegal pet trade. And that's especially harmful because lemurs are very social, intelligent animals that belong in complex family groups, not as pets. Young lemurs are often separated from their moms, which is very stressful and traumatic for them. The reason why these threats are such a huge problem is because lemurs only exist on Madagascar. If their habitat disappears there, they literally have nowhere else to go. Many lemur populations are becoming smaller and more isolated from each other, which can reduce genetic diversity and make it harder for populations to survive long term. Thankfully, there are several organizations that are trying to help the ring-tailed lemur and protect their habitat. And one of these organizations is the Lemur Rescue Center. This organization focuses on rescuing and rehabilitating lemurs that have been affected by the illegal pet trade or habitat loss. They provide medical care, shelter, and whenever possible, works towards releasing animals back into protected natural areas. They also help educate people about why lemurs should be in the wild and not be held as pets. Another organization that is helping ring-tailed lemurs is Impact Madagascar. And one of the challenges they're dealing with right now actually started decades ago. In 1975, they actually, well, not the organization, but someone released the common brown lemur into the Barentse Reserve. And since then, the population has grown a lot. Nowadays there are around 300 brown lemurs living there. But the problem is that the common brown lemur is more dominant than the ring-tailed lemur. They often occupy the best resting spots and trees that provide shade during the hottest parts in the day. They also compete for food. Both species eat tamarind fruits, which is an important source of food for the ring-tailed lemur. The common brown lemurs will also eat the fruits when they're not ripe and still green, while ring-tailed lemurs only eat fruits when they're ripe. That means there's often less food for the ring-tailed lemurs. To better understand this situation, Impact Madagascar is working together with other organizations to study brown lemurs in the Barentse Reserve. Researchers are looking at questions like how many brown lemurs there are, what do they eat, where do they sleep and rest. and what exact effect do they have on ring-tailed lemurs. This research is important to understand the relation between the common brown lemurs and the ring-tailed lemurs, which can help conservationists better protect the ring-tailed lemur in the future. Impact Madagascar also helps with a birth control program for the common brown lemurs. The animals are safely anesthetized and sterilized so they can no longer reproduce, and afterwards they're released back into the reserve. The goal is to reduce pressure on the ring-tailed lemur population and restore a healthier balance in the ecosystem. So yeah, ring-tailed lemurs might look cute and a little bit like cats, but they're complex, social and unique animals that play an important role in the ecosystem. As usual, I'll link the sources that I used for this video and the organization in the description box down below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment if you have any questions or if you want to add to this video. And if you want to see more wildlife content, please subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate it a lot. And share it with your friends who you think might be interested in these videos. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you next time.